Alright, in this video I will be going over how I tab my ICD-10-CM 2025 for those of you that haven't gotten the 2026 version yet, even though we are on it. As of the 1st of October, we switched to the 2026. Alright, so to begin with, I label my table of contents. I always label my table of contents. It's always a good reference point. There is no page number. By the way, I made all my own tabs for this one because this one did not come with tabs. Again, I'm a little more limited with my budget at the moment, so I have to do what works for me. And same thing with you guys. If you have to make your own, make your own. If you have to, or if you want to go buy your own, if you can afford it, great. I just can't see spending $20 per set of tabs myself. Anyways, let's continue into this. So, table of contents, I always label my table of contents, made my own. Next, I labeled the guidelines for this one. Since all of our books' guidelines are different, I labeled the guidelines. Next, I labeled the symbols and conventions. Symbols and conventions are on page 3. Next to it is our practical steps for using the ICD-10 book. This is good to know for the test. Next, we have our anatomical illustrations. I highly suggest marking this. It starts on page 5, the ICD-10 2025. Highly suggest marking this and making lots of notes about the different systems, unless you are very familiar with all of the systems. All right, now we get into our alpha index. I'm going to run through quickly A through Z, what pages they're on. I made all my A through Z's little tabs. Okay? All right, A will go on the same page as your alpha index tab. This is on page 39. Next, we have our B tabs. B is in Bravo. This goes on page 73. Following that, we have C. C is in Charlie on page 85. 85. Next, we have D. D is in Delta on page 117. 117. Next, we have E. E is in Echo on page 163. 163. Next, we have F. F is in Foxtrot on page 177. 177. 177. Next, we have our G's. G is in Golf on page 193. 193. Next, we have our H's. H is in Hotel on page 199. 199. Following that, we have our I's. I's in India on page 215. 215. Next, we have J and K. J and K are on the same page. Juliet and Kilo. Juliet and Kilo are on page 239. 239. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Next, we have L. L is in Lima on page 241. 241. If I can get to it. Next is M. M as in Mike on page 251, 251. Next we have is N as in November on page 263. Next we have O is in Oscar on page 271, 271. Next we have P is in Papa, on page 279, 279. If I can get to it. Next we have Q and R. Q is in Quilt, R is in Romeo on page 305, 305. Following that, we have S. S is in Sierra. S is in Sierra on page 313, 313. All right. Now we're at T. T is in Tango. T is in Tango on page 339, 339. Next we have U. U is in Uniform. U is in Uniform on page 351, 351. Next we have is V. V is in Victor. V is in Victor on page 355, 355. W. Next we have W. W is in Whiskey on page 359, 359, 359. Next we have X and Y, X-ray and yo-yo, X-ray and yo-yo on page 361. Last but not least, we have Z. Z is in Zulu. Z is in Zulu on page, well, it's on page 362, but I have the tab on page 363 just because I don't want it backwards. But that is the end of the alpha index. Next, we are on to the table of neoplasmas. This starts on page 363. I have it marked. Neoplasmas, table of neoplasmas. After that, we have table of drugs and chemicals. The table of drugs and chemicals. This starts on page 375. Next, we have index to external cause of injury. This starts on page 423, 423. And this is where our codes begin. Like you were told, this is broken up into 22 chapters. I have all 22 chapters labeled and broken down. So to start, we have certain infections and parasitic diseases. As chapter 1, these are A00 through B99 codes, alpha 00 through Bravo 99. That is what is on my tab. Is infectious and parasitic diseases. And then I have the code range. And in silver, I put chapter 1, CH1. So if I'm referencing my table of contents for whatever reason, I know exactly where chapter 1 is. And that is how they are for all of them. Next are our neoplasmas. Chapter 2, neoplasmas, page 483, 483. These are our C00 to D49 codes, Charlie 00 to Delta 49 codes. Page 483, 483. Next, we have our diseases of blood-forming organs, and disorders involving immune mechanisms, my bad. Very tiny letters, I was able to fit it all on here. You cannot break it down how you will understand it. These are our D50 to D89 codes, Delta 50 to Delta 89. This starts on page 525. 525. This is chapter 3. Next we have I can't read it upside down. Endocrine, nutritional, and metabolic diseases, chapter 4. This is E00 to E89, Echo 00 to Echo 89. This starts on page 537. 537. Sorry, my knees are hurting from how I'm sitting. All right. We are now on chapter 5, mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopment disorders. Chapter 5. These are F01 to F99 codes. Foxtrot 01 to Foxtrot 99. This starts on page 563. 563. We are now on chapter 6. Chapter 6. Diseases of the nervous system. These are our G codes, G00 to G99, Golf 00 to Golf 99. This starts on page 599, 599. Next we have chapter 7, diseases of the eye. These are our H codes. H is in hotel, H00, hotel 00 to H59, hotel 59. This starts on page 625. 625. We are now on chapter 8. Chapter 8. Disease of the ear and mastoid process. These are H codes. Again, H60 to H95, hotel 60 to hotel 95. Oy. These start on page 665. 665. We are now on chapter 9. Chapter 9 are I codes. This is disease of the circulatory system. I00 to I99. India 00 to India 99. This starts on page 677. 677. Sorry. I need to drink water. All right. Chapter 10, diseases of the respiratory system. Chapter 10, these are J codes. J00 to J99, Juliet 00 to Juliet 99. This starts on page 733. 733. Next, I have chapter 11, diseases of the digestive system. These are K codes, K's in kilo, K00 to K95, kilo 00 to kilo 95. These start on page 751. 751. Next is Chapter 12, Diseases of the Skin and Subcutaneous Tissue. These are L codes, L00 to L99, Lima 00 to Lima 99. These start on page 779, 779. Next, we are on Chapter 13, Diseases of the Musculoskeletal System and Connective Tissue. These are M codes. M is in Mike. These are M00 to M99. Mike 00 to Mike 99. These start on page 803, 803. Next, we have Chapter 14, Diseases of the... I really can't read that upside down. Genitourinary. Don't make fun of me if I can't say that correct. System. I believe that's what that is. These are N codes. N as in November. N00 to N99. November 00 to November 99. You start on page 901. 901. Next, we have Chapter 15. Pregnancy, childbirth, and period. I don't know. These are O codes. O codes. O is an Oscar. O00 to O9A. Oscar 00 to Oscar 9 Alpha. These start on page 927. 927. Chapter 16, Certain Conditions Originating in the Paternal Period. These are P codes. P codes. P as in Papa. P00 to P96, page 969. 969. Next we have Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Conjugal malformations, deformations, and chromosomal abnormalities. These are Q codes. Q is in quilt. Q00 to Q99. These start on page 983. 983. Chapter 18. Symptoms, signs, and abnormal clinical and laboratory findings not elsewhere classified. There's a lot. Again, I was able to get it onto my tab. If you can, great. If you want to abbreviate it to something you'll understand, then do that. These are R codes. R is in Romeo, R00 to R99, Romeo 00 to Romeo 99. These start on page 1001. Next, we are in Chapter 19, Injuries, Poisonings, and Certain Other Consequences of External Causes. These are S to T codes, Sierra and Tango codes. Sierra 00 to Tango 88. I cannot talk. S00 to T88. These start on page 1021. 1021. This is a thick section. This is probably your thickest section in this book. All right, next we are on chapter 20. Yeah, okay, we're on chapter 20. External causes of morbidity. These are V and Y codes, Victor and yo-yo codes. These are V00 to Y99, Victor 00 to yo-yo 99. These start on page 1235, 1235. All right. Chapter 21. We're almost done. Chapter 21, factors influencing health status in contact with health service. These are Z codes. Z is in Zulu. Z is in Zulu. Z00 to Z99. Zulu 00 to Zulu 99. These start on page 1313. 1313. Last but not least of our codes, we have chapter 22, codes for special purposes. These are U codes, U's in uniform, U00 to U85, uniform 00 to uniform 85. These start on page 1359, 1359. All right, and then we have two appendixes. Appendix A, Z codes for long-term use of drug on page 1361, 1361. And Appendix B, summary of 2025 ICD-10-CM changes. This is on page 1375. Thank you for watching. Again, I suggest breaking your books down as much as you can, considering you have 3 very thick coding books you are going to be working with while taking your CPB and CPC test.